Hey everyone, I have my friend Pierre here. Pierre, tell them about your channel.
I have a channel, Pierre Piscitelli on YouTube. I'm teaching piano, talking about music, being a nerd, all that good stuff.
Pierre and I have been friends for years. We've done one video together. He's in town visiting. I said, why don't you come over? We'll make another video together. Today we're going to talk about some specific things like arranging and how to arrange for strings, for example, if you're working on a pop song. And we're going to take a song that has a great string arrangement, Drops of Jupiter, that was done by Paul Buckmaster. Now, I have a quick Paul Buckmaster story. So Paul Buckmaster passed away, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or so. I'll check that. But I talked to him in 2006 about doing a string arrangement for a song. Spoke to him for about an hour on the phone, and he is just an absolute brilliant arranger. And he was asking me about this without even hearing the song. He was asking about the range of the instruments and how dense it was. And I said, why do you ask? And he said, because I like to write in the low registers. I like to write really deep voicing, so I like the track to be as sparse as possible. So I may ask you to take things out. And I like to actually create a part that really will work with the melody and is kind of complete within itself. And this is a great example. Drops of Jupiter has an excellent string part. And what's cool about it, which Pierre's going to do, is talk about the chord progression and how he uses the particular voicings. So we're going to start in a section of the song. This is like the pre-chorus here. Let's talk about the chords going on here. Okay, so we've got
G major, D major, F major, a little add 2, add 9,
yeah,
C major, G major, A major, D major, D minor,
which is nice,
F major,
it's like a sus2.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just talk about that part and the types of voicings that he's using there on these particular simple chords, major and minor chords.
Yep.
And some of the things that, the spacing of the voicings, because this is really important, right? So a lot of these are not complete chords here. He starts with a very simple arrangement without the full triads necessarily. Sometimes he'll add in the third there. But a lot of his writing is based around these open triads and things. Let's talk about that just to begin with. Let's start with this chord progression. We don't have to necessarily do exactly what's on there, even though I know that you can play exactly what's on there, Pierre. So let's start with the chord progression where it starts on G. So if you were to take a G major chord and orchestrate it with a string quartet or a small string ensemble, you have different types, let's say a root position voicing versus a spread voicing. Explain.
So a root position voicing for G major would be something like this. This is what you see most beginner pianists do, right? They'll just play a basic. Here I'm adding a root note in my left hand, so if you have a string quartet, maybe a cello could do this note, violas could do this G, violin 2, violin 1. But this is less than ideal.
Because the spacing...
The spacing is bad.
Spacing's bad. Why is it bad, though?
It's bad because you have three instruments that are very close to each other, and then you have an octave leap, and you have something else. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a root position chord, but there are much better and more pleasant ways to spread these notes out.
Which is why you have things like open triads or spread triads. For example, how would you...
That's right.
Take a note, just moving one note to improve that voicing?
Just one note, maybe this, okay, we have this D on top. If I moved it here to my left hand,
okay,
that's way better.
Yep.
Or I would like something like this.
Even better.
It's way better.
Okay, explain why that sounds better.
Yeah, there's probably some overtone series stuff that I'm not really qualified to talk about going on in there that just makes it more pleasing to us as listeners. But if you double certain notes and spread them out just the right way, you can get voicings that are vastly, vastly better than a root position chord or even an inversion like that. It takes some messing around, but after you do it for a while, you kind of develop a bag of tricks as an arranger, and you develop some defaults that you might revert to.
Okay, so that particular voicing that you're playing there.
This one?
Yes. Okay, so one of the things about it is that you have this open triad in this hand.
Right.
With a root on the top of the chord. Now that's a very common voicing in string arranging. Thomas Newman uses a lot of these voicings like this with the root on top. Like Shawshank Redemption would do something like this. So it's a D flat major spread triad, just like we're doing with the root on the top. Then the next voicing he goes to is this E6-9, and then to D sus4 with the root on top, but spread suspended 4 triad to B sus2 chord. Those are all exactly those kind of voicings.
Yes, with very little movement.
With very little movement.
So what makes them sound good. They're not jumping all over the place.
Right. And that's the exact same spacing with the root on top,
right,
spread triad in the bottom.
Fifths and sixths. Really
Fifths
nice.
And sixths, yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a second to talk to you about this channel. This is actually Rick Beato 2. I've had it since the beginning of my main channel, and many of you are not subscribed. As a matter of fact, 87% of the people that watch this channel regularly are not subscribed. So I encourage you to hit the subscribe button on this channel and on my main channel. This will help me get even more of my dream guests and help continue to grow both channels. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about this particular spot here, Pierre. Beautiful. Okay, explain this. What's going on here?
So we're starting with the C major triad, but it's in second inversion, which is much nicer than just root position, right? It's much nicer to hear. And just by moving the top note, which is E, to F,
perfect voice leading.
Perfect voice leading, and the root up by a whole step to D.
Yes.
I mean, huge difference. You get this D minor 11.
Yeah, D minor 11, right? Yeah.
And then kind of a G5, right?
G5, which is great. Those voicings where you don't have the third in them and it doesn't compete with anything else. And it sounds really powerful. It's basically like a power chord, but in the strings. It's
better. I wouldn't want to hear...
Oof.
Right?
Terrible.
There's enough stuff in there doing that.
That's right.
Okay, so we have G power chord, and then just by moving the root, which is G, to A, we get sort of this ambiguous, it wants to be A, Aeolian, I guess A minor.
Yeah, but it's really like a passing chord.
Could be sus.
Yeah.
It is passing. And then C over E, right? C in first inversion, which is nice and suspenseful, much better than that.
Yes.
And it leads you to F. Because you need the E to lead you to F.
Yes.
It's just better.
Again. Then adds a third there.
Love that. I'd call that a flam there.
Oh! Okay, so what happens there, Pierre?
So higher inversions. So I hear...
Adding that third on the top of the chord.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then... Okay, let's talk about that when it goes to the F chord there.
Yeah, so inner voice is moving around. Maybe viola's there.
So you use the sharp 4 there to add that extra melodic interest there and to kind of grab your ear. So the ear, so he's starting out with these things, he's adding inversions, then he starts to add some dissonances, right, to increase the intensity of the tune.
Yeah.
He's moved up to a little Then he does that climbing lick to go into a new register there. Let me put the melody in so you know where you are in the song here, where you can hear that sharp 4.
Yes, plain old Jane told a story about a man who was too afraid to fly, so he never...
What is the note that he's singing against there, Pierre?
He's singing an E flat over an F chord there.
Yes.
So he's giving us the dominant.
Giving us like a
blues.
dominant 7, like a blues note, right?
Yes, plain old Jane told a story about a man who was too afraid to fly, so he never did land. But tell me, did the wind sweep you off your feet? Did you finally get...
Now, of course, you want it to lift there in the chorus, which makes it so powerful when it goes up into that high register.
Big time.
Right?
Too afraid to fly, so he never did land. But tell me, did the wind sweep you off your feet? Did you finally get the chance to dance along the light of day and head back to the Milky Way? But tell me, did Venus blow your mind? Was it everything you wanted to find? And then you missed me while you were looking for yourself out there.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Let me mute the voice here for a second. Love this. That. Okay, let's talk about that part. That's my favorite part of that whole thing there, what he's doing there, the voicings. Let's talk about that on the F chord.
So this part.
Why did those voicings work so well, the spacing of them?
Well, he's descending with fifths and sixths for the most part. There's a theme here, right? These are the spreads that seem to be most pleasing to the ear.
Right.
And they work, and they don't get in the way of the melody or any of the other strumming guitar parts.
It sounds really grand, and then he also puts in that fifth in the bass between the F and the C, which gives it the power that it needs. Once again, that low register rating. Let's talk about the next chorus here, where the strings go to single notes, right? Listen.
But tell me, did the wind sweep you off your feet? Did you finally get the chance to dance along the light of day and head back toward the Milky Way?
Okay, let's talk about what the strings are doing here, Pierre.
Simple lines that don't get in the way of the vocals, and they hold. He always sits on a note in between chord changes.
Right.
Which is great.
Yes.
So this feeling of continuity. Just because you're on a new chord doesn't mean you have to change your note.
Okay, let me go back and play that part again with the vocal so we know where we are.
But tell me, did the wind sweep you off your feet? Did you finally get the chance to dance along the light of day and head back toward the Milky Way? Tell me, did you sail across the sun? Did you make it to the Milky Way to see the lights all fading and that heaven is overrated? Tell me, did you fall for a shooting star, one without a permanent scar, and then you missed me while you were looking for yourself?
When it kicks in, let's listen to the strings. Okay, let's talk about that part there, Pierre.
Again, spread triads. Starting there, nice G major spread, up a whole step to A. Actually, no C sharp. I don't think there's a third in there.
No.
Because this just too happy.
Yeah.
So we're more ambiguous. Power chord, and then we have a little line there, drawing attention to more of the middle. Probably the viola's doing that.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about that there, Pierre.
So again with the spread triads, but now there's a bit of dissonance coming in.
Yes.
Now we have some notes that are sustaining.
Yep.
While another comes down. So you have the B and C kind of rubbing together for a second, but it's all in passing and it sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me.
as a variation of the last time that it did this, you have just the cellos chugging along.
It's so Beatles.
So Beatles. Let's talk about this ending line, which I think is really beautiful. Okay, first of all, this is over an F major chord, right? So let's talk about the line. Really great.
Amazing.
It's not a straight arpeggiated line. It's not a straight scalar line. It's just has a couple little turns in it that make it really interesting.
They're broken diatonic chords.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
But there are a couple of notes you don't expect.
Yes. And it has that climbing line.
Yeah, pretty sparse actually.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah. Pierre, that was awesome. This is a great lesson in how to arrange for strings. To me, this is an absolutely brilliant string arrangement. Any of the Paul Buckmaster, Elton John arrangements are absolutely amazing. Stuff to be studied. And these particular techniques of using spread triads, which work great on the guitar for soloing, they work great on the piano, but they work particularly well for string spacing, especially when you're dealing with just simple major, minor, sus chords, things like that. You just can't miss. You don't have to always use the thirds in the chords. A lot of these have sus2s, or a lot of these are just simple 5 chords or power chords as we call them on guitar.
Right.
They work really well. Don't be afraid to leave out certain notes.
That's right. Less is more. Less is more.
Follow Pierre's channel. You can go to Pierre Piscitelli, watch him on YouTube, watch him on Instagram, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.